Hi, everyone. Welcome to our live session today. As you join, please open the chat, tell me hello, and share with us where you are joining from. Where are you at in the world? I am not alone today. I'm here with some very dear friends who all have one thing in common. We are all surface pattern designers. And so it's my thrill to introduce these lovely ladies to you. But we're going to say hello to you first. Jasmine from California, welcome. Anne is here from Florida. Welcome to the call. Corrine from Michigan, hi. Barbara from the Boston area, hello and welcome. Julie from Canada. Marcy from Hawaii, hi, welcome to the call. We are so excited to dive into this conversation that we have today because um, many of you are right where these women have been in their life as well. And so we're going to have just a conversation about what the journey has looked like and why we're all drawn to surface pattern design and why it is such an impactful part of our lives. And for me, we do this call every year with different people. And to me, it is such a gift to just be surrounded with people who are, I don't know, just passionate about the same thing. We have a love for the same thing. And our hope is that you leave this call feeling inspired and really understanding what's possible for you. So before we dive in, I want to introduce these incredible ladies to you. I have notes because I have your bios, my friends. Okay, so Melissa, wave your hand. How are you, Melissa?
So well, thank you.
Melissa Johnson was born and raised in the Midwest. She enjoys all things outdoors, hiking, running, and gravel road drives. She has three beautiful wild babes who keep her and her husband busy. She's a watercolor artist and feels blessed to have found surface design to create a sustainable income from what she loves to do. Can't wait to get to your story, Melissa. Thank you for being
You.
here.
Thank you.
Stephanie, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. Stephanie Slawinski is a surface designer and the owner of Fancy That Design House and Co. She loves finding inspiration in nature, spending time in her garden and kitchen, as well as walking through antique stores and treasure hunting at flea markets. You know, I wish we lived closer together, Stephanie. You'll find her creating at her home studio with a cup of coffee always close by, illustrating and designing for fabric, wallpaper, home goods, and more, while finding joy in all the little things with her husband, three sons, and her ever-growing number of chickens. You do know just how much we have in common.
I know.
All of that. Please. Please and thank you. Cassandra, wave your hand. Cassandra Zanaboni, thank you so much for being here. Living among the towering pines and serene rivers of the Pacific Northwest, Cassandra is a surface pattern designer, an industry educator, former interior designer, and mama, endlessly inspired by the flora, fauna, and rugged landscapes of the Pacific Northwest. Her work unfolds whimsical narratives within each piece, showcasing a deep appreciation for texture and pattern and nature's hues. Cassandra, welcome. You are unmuted, which is okay for now, but do know that. You're welcome. Patty, wave your hand. So glad to have you here, Patty. Patty is a retired and disabled RN, as well as a grandmother. Patty faced significant challenges after surviving two strokes and a near fatal car accident, which left her with brain injuries that affected her ability to focus and process information. In November 2019, she picked up sketching and painting and slowly built her skills by dedicating just 10 minutes a day to creativity. After taking immersion, she transformed her passion into a career in surface pattern design, print on demand, private branding, and even submitted products to the Walmart marketplace. Patty, I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you, Bonnie. It's my honor, truly.
And Casey, welcome,
Hello.
Casey Gordon has an undergraduate and master's degree in art education and taught middle school art for 10 years in Pennsylvania. She started Immersion in 2020 with zero Illustrator experience, minimal Photoshop experience, and no graphic or digital design experience. Casey quit teaching to raise 3 young kids and pursue surface design at Tupelo Joe Design Co. She currently has active licenses with Baby Tula, Allison Ames, Hawthorne Supply Co., Golden Coil Stationery, Wallpapers by T, and over 400 patterns on Spoonflower. Welcome to our panel today, my friends. Welcome to our panel. You each have such a unique contribution to our conversation today. And again, also just that you all had a dream and you've all been working at it for different amounts of time. And it's been so incredible to see how far you've come. So the first question I would love to ask each of you is go back to maybe even the moment that you discovered what surface pattern design was. And what made you feel the calling to enter into being a surface pattern designer? What is your why? Why do you love it? Why were you called to it? Patty, can I start with you?
Your 5-day challenge that you had, just like the one you had last week, was an eye-opener for me. I didn't even know what the term meant. And I had spent my life trying to figure out, I could tell people what I liked, but I couldn't draw it. And then you said you would teach Adobe Illustrator, and I thought, well, maybe that will help me. And it just opened the doors for me. I haven't looked back. So it's my why is just to produce and make people smile.
Mm. Patty, did you know what surface pattern design was, or was there a moment where that kind of dawned on you?
No, I thought you explained it really well in the 5-day challenge, but then when you had, or the introduction, when you had the class, I signed up and I thought, well, what's the worst that can happen? I have paperwork I can read later. And I just fell in love from day one. And it's just been amazing.
Mm. Thank you, Patty, for sharing. Stephanie, how about over to you?
I had a corporate career in art and design, and I actually never knew the term surface designer. I always thought I was a graphic designer, but now looking back, I was always a surface designer. Even my job was always spot illustration, so I never really did true print graphic design. But realizing I was a surface designer, I was like, that's what it is. And my why has always been my family. It has always been to have the time and the location freedom to raise our kids.
Okay, I know we're going to come back and talk about that a bit more. So good. Melissa, what about you?
I apologize if you could hear my lab barking.
We can't.
Um, Much like Patty and Steph, I didn't realize that surface design was a thing. So when the whole idea of clothing and bedding and pillows being something that another human being made, just first of all blew my mind, and then that the opportunity that I could do it and show my kids that they could do something that they love and be successful is just that is definitely my why.
I love that. Casey, what about you?
I had no idea surface design was a thing, even as an art teacher, and I'm supposed to be the one educating my students on, jobs in the art world, and I had no idea this even existed, but my why was also trying to find something I could be creative with, but also take that step back from teaching and be home to raise my 3 kids.
Yeah. Cassandra.
Yeah, so many similarities with everybody here. I think I knew what surface pattern design was, but I didn't truly know that it was a viable career and option to pursue outside of the interest of it. And I stumbled upon your information in January, right before the course launched, when I was going through kind of a reckoning of what I wanted for my career. And I was looking for a way to pursue my creative endeavors while supporting my mental well-being and have the freedom to be home with my kids and watch them grow. They're pretty young, and these are formative years that I didn't want to miss. Creativity is such a big part of my mental health and their life that it was just kind of a no-brainer to combine them all.
I love that. You are all part of what we call our immersion family. There's something that really happens when you come through the immersion course because you are now what we call an alumni, and we just become this kind of big family. And so I've loved watching each of you. What I want to ask next is what has happened for you since taking immersion. Every one of you, many of you took immersion in different years. So if you would tell us what year you took it, and then you also all came in with different levels of experience. Some of you had no experience coming in, and some of you had like immense experience coming in. And so immersion sometimes is just like a little catalyst in your bigger story. So I would love to just kind of open that conversation and figure out where you were and what has been made possible for you since. Let's go in the same order. Patty, you're up.
Okay. With a brain injury, I don't remember dates really well, but I believe it was 2021. And then I took it again, and I've taken a couple of your other presentations. You had one with Stu that was just blew my mind with all the generosity from you and Stu. Yeah, it's just, I basically couldn't draw shapes. I didn't see images correctly, but with the Illustrator, I could pull things out. And I loved how you said you would take a flower and you would press it and then you would draw it and create these. And I was just enthralled with how you would draw these beautiful pieces of art and tell your story about your trips. And I thought, well, I could do that. And took a long time for me to process it. But then people liked what I did. And I thought, well, why not? So I reached out to Walmart thinking, they aren't interested. And they accepted me and quickly had to create my website because it wasn't that great. And I reached out to people and said, what if I could create a shirt for you that would promote your business? And I've been able to do my watercolor and create print on demand. And right now, I have this one company that's purchased 3 resorts in Central America, and they've asked me to do the design. So I'm actually negotiating with manufacturers in other countries for organic fabric with my design on it and a sock manufacturer. So, you just never know. You just put it out there.
It's so fun. I
Yeah.
love that, Patty. Okay, that's gonna tell me more about socks as they go. I want some.
Okay.
Stephanie, bring us into your story.
Yeah, I took immersion in 2020. I did have, graphic experience and experience in Adobe products, but in Illustrator, there are like 20 ways to do the same thing. So immersion just met me where I was with some experience, and I walked away knowing, 5 different ways to do something I thought I knew how to do, or there was a new tool that I had never used. So that was really exciting to learn more about Illustrator. On graduation day, I had an offer from a fabric company. And I remember before the graduation, I reached out to you, Bonnie, and I was just like, I have got this call. And with great respect and excitement, I said no to that because I just didn't have the opportunity to approach my dream fabric company yet. And a week or 2 later, I was with them. And now I'm actually working on my 15th collection with them right now.
Was that story clear, you all? So she turned down an offer, and within the next 2 weeks, she landed the #1 company contract that she had really wanted to be with. And she's been with them ever since, right? 15th collection. That's
Yeah.
incredible, Stephanie. You do more than just fabric, though. Can you run through the list of items you have that you sell?
Yeah, I do a mix of sourcing product that I offer on my website, everything from POD items, shirts, mugs, keychains, washi tape, tea towels, and then I license with a variety of home goods companies. So canvas wall prints, more kitchenware. Yeah, I love the balance of art licensing and then also creating and sourcing my own product. I find it fun to, think of a product and think, I want my artwork on that. How do I make that happen? And you just learn how to make it happen.
We have links for everyone today that we're including over in the chat, so you can go dive in and just see the magnitude of products and things that we're talking about too. Lots of questions. Melissa.
I was giggling when you first said that to Steph. Can you run down? Because I'm a big fan of Steph's and I'm thinking of all the products that she has available.
Me too. Puzzle. There's many that you didn't mention. Puzzles. I don't know if you still have them, but at one point you had glasses, like
Oh, yeah.
drink glasses that I fell in love with. I love it all so much.
So I took immersion in 2022. I had started to teach myself to hand letter and sketch and paint that year, and started to get burnt out already from customs when I found surface design, which was, as a mama, like saving grace that I can keep doing this, that it can work with our family. And it did, because shortly after immersion, I had that gut-wrenching moment where I changed my bio on Instagram that I was, in fact, a surface designer. And shortly after, I started getting licensing inquiries, and I thought some of them were fake because you just have to, it takes some time to accept the fact that it's real.
So, Melissa, I know your story, so I'm going to draw a little bit more of it out of you. You mentioned this, but you had gotten to a place where you were doing custom work through Etsy. And I think you told me you had gotten to a place where you, as appreciative as you were of the orders, that as the order came in, you felt the weight of it because it was taking too much of your time. Is that right?
Correct.
And can you just name some of the products that you have licensed at this point?
I get a little giddy, and I can't even wrap my head around the fact that in 2022 I took immersion, and now I've licensed dozens of wallpaper collections, dozen of fabric collections, stationery, baby blankets, baby apparel, women's apparel. It seems like a dream come true.
And it's things that your own children can use, right? Like, can you tell me what that feels like when you see things that you've designed that you're using in your own home?
It's actually really fun, because especially the blankets, because the kids will see a blanket come in, like that the brands I work with, they'll send you a sample as a, either part of the package or just out of kindness, and my kids will fight over it. And then they'll say, well, I want one too. So then I have to like go through all the businesses that I've worked with, and they each have to have like the airplanes or the blue butterfly or the blue florals, or, because I have 2 boys and a girl. So that's really fun, because a lot of times they're sitting in my lap when I'm creating the artwork, or, digitizing it. And then when it comes in, I could see it in their eyes. I got a little emotional. I could see it in their eyes that they're grasping the fact that this is real.
Yeah. Casey, how about you?
I took immersion for the first time in 2020. I was teaching middle school art for a number of years. And even though I was in this creative job and, really set for life, I would have had a good pension and a decent salary and summers off and all the benefits of that. But something in me I wasn't having that creative outlet that I needed. And when you find something like surface design, which I found through Skillshare. And then I found that in January, took your course on Skillshare, and then it was like, oh my gosh, February, that was like, what's this thing called immersion? It felt like the timing was so oddly perfect. It felt like it was meant to be. Truly, it did. Like, just the timing was, it couldn't have lined up better. And taking that, and then I remember once I realized what surface design was, and at the time I had twin 2-year-olds, I'm taking immersion when they're 2. And because we carried them everywhere, I had these 2 baby carriers that were from Baby Tula brand. My cousin had these carriers. My sister had these carriers. Everyone, it was like the best carrier. And I always loved picking out the patterns of which carrier I wanted to buy. So I wrote on a slip of paper license with Baby Tula, and I slipped it in my phone case. And that was the first license I got, was Baby Tula. And then I've gotten a few carriers and licenses with them now. And by the time my third child was born was when one of the carriers came out and I got to hold her in the carrier. So that was incredible. And then now that my kids are getting a little older, I got the design license for Allison Ames, and both my girls, my 6-year-old and my 3-year-old, get to twirl around in those dresses. And it does it, just like you said, Melissa, it like chokes you up because it's like you see your daughters wearing the things that you designed when you had this little bit of discontentment years ago that was like, I'm just not loving what I'm doing. Maybe I should just do something about it. And then you find yourself in this position that's like, my daughter is wearing my dress right now.
Mm. I know the feeling. I know the feeling really well. And it is one of the most special feelings. You can't put words to it. Cassandra.
Oh man, I just can relate to so many of you. I found Immersion in early 2022, and that year I took it. I had no Illustrator experience. Previously was an interior designer, and I was working in AutoCAD and just really didn't enjoy it. It was very boring and very uninspiring despite the interior work that I was doing. But I had just had my second baby, and they're very close together. They're 12 months apart, and was just kind of going through this reckoning of who am I and how can I have this creative career and how can I support my kids? How can I do this all? And Bonnie Christine fell into my lap. I started the course after immediately. But what led me to it is that I made a baby quilt with my mom with some fabric that I really fell in love with. And that was the spark that just was like, I could maybe do something like this. I took the course and just went all in. I figured I'm already tired. I've got these two under 12 months. I've got a 4 or 5 month old baby. Let's see how tired I can get and put the pedal to the metal. And that year was able to secure 2 licensing contracts within a week of each other. And it was a really amazing week and experience. And it just proved to me that after all that work, it pays off when you really commit to yourself and commit to making something happen. And I have one fabric contract with somebody I really love, and they're based in the Hudson Valley, where I'm originally from, which is upstate New York. I'm in Bend, Oregon now, and a peel and stick wallpaper that I really love. And that kind of speaks to my previous life of interior design. So it's kind of, I'm chipping away. I got a lot on my hands with the 3 kiddos. But that's why I'm doing this career. So it's a really amazing experience to be able to do that and have my kids watch me do that. They're always like little artists pretending to be designers when I'm working on something and having their little inside communication that, oh, well, I'm working on a pattern, and well, what pattern are you working on?
Mm.
It's just really cool to lead by example and to be with them at the same time.
You know, it's one thing that I love about it because with young children, I can, like, even my work now, obviously, some of my work looks like work very much, but some of my work looks like play and it looks like painting and it looks like being really creative. And so I love letting my children come alongside me and see that part of it and do it with me. And so sometimes I get to be very productive, even, when we are together, which is also a nice addition.
It's really special.
I've asked you all here for a bunch of different reasons, not only because of your success, but also because I think each of you really represent a different type of person that we have on the call right now. And so I want to ask each of you a little bit of a different question for this next part. Patty, this is one for you. And so you and I have talked a lot, and I know that I have so many people in our community who are likely feeling similar to how you felt not long ago. We have a lot of women who think that maybe it's too late or maybe the tech curve is too great. So, can you just speak to anyone who's feeling all of those kind of what ifs? Like, what if it's too late? What if the technology is too difficult for me to learn?
I would love to. I was thinking about that after you posed the question, and it dawned on me, I have many artist friends who are watercolor and acrylic artists, and I'm the baby in the group. They're in their 70s to 90s, and they're doing so many things and teaching and winning awards and all these things. And I had the same attitude towards painting when I first started at the end of 2020. It's like, oh, I'll never be as good as you, blah, blah, blah. And I felt the same way with your class. It's like, but the difference is, Bonnie, you give us a roadmap and you teach us at where we are. And we can always go back to the lessons. Plus, you provide a community. And I joined the small community group right away, both the classes, and I'm so glad I did because we're still friends today. But it was wonderful because we were paired with people who had maybe a little more expertise in, let's say, Adobe Illustrator, and we just played and had so much fun. As far as technology, I didn't even know that little, what is it, call the beach ball. People would say, "Oh, I crashed the beach ball." And I went, "How do you get a beach ball on a computer?" And they said, when Adobe Illustrator crashes. I said, "Oh, I do that about 4 times a day." I actually blew up my hard drive because I had so much on there and I had to learn all of this because I just could not understand it. And you just take it one step at a time. And it's not hard. We make it hard. We make ourselves the enemy if we think about it, instead of saying, why not? And why not me? And what can you contribute? We're still on a journey. We shouldn't be quitting just because we think we might not be able to do it. Does that help?
Mhm. Sure does. You tell me in the chat. We also are probably going to have a little bit of time before we wrap this call to answer some questions from you all. So if you have questions that you would like us to consider, you can put it in the Q&A at the bottom of the Zoom panel. So not over in the chat, but if you click on Q&A, you can put it there at the bottom. Stephanie, many of us all have children, but I thought I would talk to you specifically about fitting this into a busy life. You have 3 boys and you've had a career, you've moved into surface pattern design. And I think that that's probably one of the things that we encounter the most is like, how am I going to fit this in? When am I going to do it? How am I going to learn something new? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like there were a lot of tired mamas in this group here. And I have the benefit now of being further along in my career where I can look back and see those times where there was growth and also where I chose we all time is cool because we all have the same resource. It's the same amount for all of us. And what we say no to and yes to, it's what we choose. And so when I look back at when I started Fancy That, I had 2 kids under the age of 2, and I just decided I want to do this. And so I gave myself due dates of creating art. And it was like in school, I needed a deadline. So I'm going to give myself a deadline. There's no one else working with me. I'm going to give myself a due date. And so I just did that. And then in 2020, when I took Immersion, I made the commitment to myself that I was going to take this as live as possible, meaning I was going to be on every live call. I was going to work through the entire course, at the pace that it's put out. Now I know everyone can't do that, but I didn't want to rely on the fact that I have lifetime access because it would sit on the back burner if I did that. And then the world shut down and 3 kids at elementary age were, at our dining room table and all needing to be on devices at different times. And I was like, but I was going to do this live. And I did get through the course because again, you just shift priorities and you make it happen. And even the next years, as I was experiencing growth in my business, we had then made the decision to homeschool for a few years. So I brought them home. I'm homeschooling. I'm growing my design business. I just think that being busy really just gives us the opportunity to become an excellent manager of our time. You get really good at saying, I'm blocking this time to work. I'm blocking this time to do this or that. And overall, I just had to keep telling myself, I'm home with the kids. It's what I wanted, and we made it work.
Yeah. I have the same experience. I feel like I didn't know how to manage my time until I had to. And I ended up becoming much more focused and much more productive once I didn't have all the time anymore. Thank you, Stephanie. Melissa, I think I would love for you to talk to anyone who is feeling like the market is saturated, that there's no room for new voices, new art. It seems so busy. What would you say?
I love this topic because we love creating art. That's why we're here. We, in some way or form. And then when we are on socials, the algorithm in Google, they know that we love art. So they're feeding us beautiful artwork. So then when we find this concept of potentially being a surface designer or a real artist and making a business out of it, we feel like there's no room. And that's exactly what happened is when I took the free workshop, I thought, well, this is great, but I just started. I'm not sure that I could ever be to this standard of, artwork at any point, maybe in 10 years, but I did it anyways. And the reason why I did it anyways is because I had Bonnie's voice in my head and a little sticker that I put on my laptop that said, "There's room for you." And it really got me through those points that I needed the courage to keep practicing, to keep sharing my work. Because something that I've realized now is that no matter what, if you painted a lemon and I painted a lemon, they're going to look entirely different. Now, when we go and make those into a pattern, it's going to look and evolve even more differently than Stephanie or Bonnie's pattern because we were each born with a different artistic voice and our stories are intuitively in our designs. And when brands are looking for artwork for their products, they want something unique and special. And maybe not every brand is for you, but the ones that are right for you will reach out to you because there's something authentic and that they can resonate with and that their customers will resonate with.
Mm. I have a question for those of you who are here listening. Do I have any watercolor artists here or traditional artists, painters here? Melissa, I would love for you, there's so many. I think that this is something that we get asked a whole bunch. What is this right for me? And I want you to genuinely answer this. I don't actually know what your answer is going to be. Because we use Adobe Illustrator. And so many times traditional artists prefer to use Photoshop. And we are unbiased, but we teach Illustrator. So could you talk to the painters in the group? How did you find your work translate to surface pattern design? And what advice would you give someone who was very much thinking that right now? Like, I'm not sure if Illustrator is the right choice. And I'm totally putting you on the spot. You didn't know I was going to ask you this, so.
It's totally fine because it is so exciting to me to say that, yes, absolutely, you can be a watercolor artist, gouache artist, fine artist, and still work in Illustrator. There's ways to make it remain true to your artwork. There's also potential in Photoshop, but for the first 2 years as a surface pattern designer and strictly watercolor artist, I only used Illustrator. I just recently started playing with Photoshop because I'm so comfortable with Illustrator. I thought that I'd try both to expand my opportunities. But as a traditional watercolor artist, there's so much opportunity. Just like Steph said, there's a bazillion tools and you can use them a bazillion ways. So the options are endless.
You know, what I think is that I don't know a single person who has learned Photoshop and regretted it. I don't know a single person who's learned Illustrator and regretted it. And the more you learn, the more you can just expand, you know, your possibilities and your options. So I'm so glad to have asked you that. Thank you, Melissa. Okay, Casey, what I want to talk to you about is the investment in immersion and your professional development and the those of those of our audience who are listening who are really considering and also feeling like it's a scary investment to make.
Mhm. It is scary. And especially when I decided to take immersion, I had only known you, Bonnie, your face or what service design was for like 4 or 5 weeks. And then immersion popped up. So that was the only time I had to decide, oh my gosh, like, is this an investment I want to take on right now? I don't even really know what it is. But I
For
think
me.
yeah, yeah, that's true. I mean, but I think you make the decision a lot easier, Bonnie, too. Just being who you are. It's just like such a comfortable, trustworthy feeling. But I think, once I knew who you were and knew that this opportunity existed, it's kind of like I just saw this runway appear and there was this gate blocking it. And all I had to do to unlock that gate was just sign up for immersion. And I think I just wanted so badly to know what was on the other end of that runway or where that plane was going to take me. I couldn't resist. It was like this whole vast expanse of information I could learn if I just signed up. And I loved having lifetime access because when I was learning it, at first, especially if you don't have experience in Illustrator or especially art experience, it might feel like drinking from a fire hose a little bit, but you can always come back to it, right? Like, I mean, I didn't Pantone, like putting things in Pantone kind of blew my mind in immersion. And I kind of was like, okay, I got to come back to that. That feels like a different language to me. But when I got the design license with Allison Ames, they asked for everything in Pantone. I was like, oh my gosh, I have all this information right on my computer, thanks to Bonnie. And 5, 10 minutes, I had everything in Pantone for Allison Ames. It was like, I'm so glad I did that. And, and I think the scary thing about a bigger investment that is funny to me is if most of us are mothers here, or at least have someone in our life that we care about enough, that if that person came to us and said, there's this thing I really want to do, but it's kind of expensive and I'm just really excited about it, but I don't know if I should do it, but I really want to do it, especially for our children, we would say, well, let's just try it. Like I'll pay for it for you. Like we would do that for our kids, right? But when it comes to us, you have that feeling of like, well, is it worth it for me? Would I pay for it for myself? I would do it for my kids in a heartbeat, but would I do it for myself? And I think what I've learned now that I've done it is that it really was for my kids all along. Even though I paid for it for myself, it benefited my kids tremendously. Like they're seeing me happier. I'm home with them and they're seeing mom like chase her dreams and like achieve it little by little. Like what's more valuable than that? So, it really was for them this whole time.
That actually gave me chill bumps.
Mm.
I've never even thought about it that way. And you're right. There's something that we don't really it's difficult to talk about. And also it's like the ripple effect of joy happening because when we do something that we love, it it spills over into every other aspect of our lives. And the people around us are more joyful because of it and they get to see someone going after a dream and a goal and that is I don't know, it's really incredible. Thank you for sharing, Casey. Cassandra, I want to ask you a similar question to the one I asked Melissa about coming in with zero experience and then what was made possible for you even in the first year. Did you ever feel like the market is saturated? Did you ever feel like, "Ugh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to kind of break into this industry?" And how did you work through that?
Yeah, the voice in my head is always the loudest, and kind of like what Patty said, it's always me that's standing in my own way. I'm my biggest obstacle. So there was a lot of voices that was, I struggle to draw, I'm not comfortable sharing this stuff. The thief of joy is comparing yourself to others. That's something I was seeing. You follow, just like Melissa said, you follow social media, you start looking at surface pattern design, and all of a sudden your feed is filling up with this incredible art. So that voice just started to get louder and louder of, what if I can't draw? What if it's overwhelming? What if the technology is too much? And a lot of big fears and doubts for me. And that I think ties in with just that feeling of, is my voice important enough in an industry that I'm scared is too saturated? And that's kind of the way you have to think of it. The saturation is kind of coming from our inside perspective of how we're seeing it. Because just like everyone says, like, your voice is important in any industry. I think anything gets filled over time, and then it starts to change and shift, which I see a big dynamic, amazing shift in this industry happening. There is room all the time. It just depends on it. And I just had to overcome those obstacles by doing one thing a day and taking things bite by bite and small steps, doing what I can, trying not to beat myself up when it wasn't what I wanted to do, but just still believing in myself and really letting that community drive me on and encourage me, and just kind of like remind me to turn the volume down. All those crazy people inside that were telling me all those things that really aren't true. I think what's really important about this community in particular in surface pattern design is that it doesn't feel too saturated, even more so because we all believe it. So there's this camaraderie amongst us, that we are sharing resources and cheering each other on. And this community over competition it's really big here. It's not just a saying, it actually is. So even when I share something I'm not too sure about, or worried if it's too similar to something someone else, I still have my community just rah-rahing me in the background and reminding me to like believe in myself and keep going.
Yeah, it's pretty special. It's special.
Sometimes I get really excited. Did I answer the question fully?
Yeah, you sure did. I think you did beautifully.
I get so passionate, and I'm just going.
Something that every single one of us has in common, and in the chat as well, is that voice that just it comes in different waves and says different things. But for me, I felt all the things. I felt really scared. I felt like it was saturated. I felt imposter syndrome. I felt vulnerability. Um, and so the one thing that is true is that we all have it. We all have that kind of stuff. And also we move through it. And so I think the misconception is that maybe we have never been scared, or we are not afraid to show our work or show up in a particular way. And I'll only speak for myself, but I'm afraid every day. And also, I just continue to show up in spite of it or despite it. So I want each of you here to take a second and go back in time to the moment you were considering joining Immersion and all the things that were coming up for you. Can this Bonnie woman be trusted? Um, and then, do you have a piece of advice for someone who is in the same place? Not only about whether or not to take immersion, but whether or not to pursue their passion for surface pattern design. If that is something you can go back to, what would you tell yourself? What would you tell someone who is in a similar place to you? Patty, how about you first?
Well, I have to say I was hesitant because I was concerned, had no real income because I was disabled and not really an artist. And I remember saying to my husband, "Do you think I should do this?" And he looked at me and he said, "When do you do anything for yourself?" And I said, "Well, I have the grandkids and the kids." And he goes, "Stop it. This is an investment for the rest of your life. You have spent your life giving in your career, and now it's your turn." And he said, "What's the worst that can happen? You learn something?" I went, "Hmm." He said, "What if people really like your art?" He said, "I do." He's my best cheerleader. But getting back to something one of you had said a few minutes ago, with grandchildren, not only our children, but our grandchildren, we impress upon them that we don't give up and that we do invest. We tell them to invest and we admire what they do. But when do we take that time for us? And that was Bonnie, listening to you and how calm you are and kind and what an excellent, I know you said you didn't think you were an educator, but you are an exceptional educator. And I love the fact that you made it feel easy. It's not 100% easy, but if you take the simple steps and learn, it is easy. And it's just, and as an artist friend said to me when I first started painting, she said, "What's the worst that can happen? You turn the paper over and paint again?" Because I do watercolor. And so my joke was with my community group, I said, "What's the worst that can happen? We delete it off Illustrator and start all over again." And it's just phenomenal. And I was so impressed because I kept thinking, you could actually make patterns. You could make something you really love and have it in your home instead of going and buying something that almost worked, if that makes any sense. So I encourage everyone. It's definitely worth your time. You will get so much out of this.
You know what that makes me think of is a promise I make myself is if I worst case scenario, I'm required to also best case scenario. And so what is the worst that can happen? What's the best that can happen as well? And that's been really impactful for me because I'm a great worst case scenario. Stephanie, what about you?
I had a question this week that brought me right back to where I was in 2020, like considering signing up. Someone asked me, "Well, do you think it's worth it? Can I just find this like on YouTube or Skillshare?" And I immediately had my answer because so you asked me about being busy, that was the question I answered about our time. And you cannot, and I'm scrappy. Like I will piecemeal things together if I can, but why? This takes you from beginning, whether you've opened Illustrator or not, to at the end, you can have a collection if you've worked through it. And it's so comprehensive. And so if this is what I would tell myself if I was back at, because I had this whole hesitation thing as well, but don't piecemeal your education in this together on your own, because Bonnie, you take us right through the entire process. And even in things that you don't necessarily teach, I came out seeing your process and suddenly my files were more organized than I've ever organized my files before, but it wasn't something that was like a lesson maybe, but I came out and just took so much away from it. And it's so comprehensive. I'd encourage everyone to just dive in.
Melissa.
I can relate to both of Patty and Steph because one, I'm a stay-at-home mom, so I wasn't bringing in any income. And now I was going to come to my husband and say, "Hey, I just found out about this new surface design theory and it's going to cost me this much." But he saw the spark in me right away. He was a fantastic encourager. And you all that are on this call, you felt it too. And I think if you go through life not listening even a little bit to that, I think it's just think about that. That's what I think about is I'm so glad that I didn't pause, that I didn't wait another year, because that time that Steph was talking about that we all know about, it is invaluable. Our time that it would take to learn the amount of foundational things that Bonnie shares in this. She almost makes it easy, Patty, doesn't she? I had not touched Adobe products, just becoming an artist, and Bonnie made it almost easy. So don't hesitate. It's amazing.
Casey, what about you?
I think back to when I was trying to decide whether to sign up or not. And I think I just really felt like what you're saying, Melissa, that you feel that something ignite that's like this possibility is there. And there's this possibility to really change your trajectory. And what you can do with the amount of information you get in immersion is incredible. I mean, like you're all saying, it's not just that, oh, you sign up for this course and you know how to build a repeating pattern. It's so much more than that, because like you were saying, Patty, there's community and there's resources and there's, so many other women's stories that you can pull inspiration from. And it's just so rich in information. There is literally nowhere else that you could get what you can get out of immersion in such a short time. It's incomparable.
I'm at a little bit of a loss of words from you all. So I'll go to you, Cassandra. Rather than cry, I'll go to you, Cassandra.
Stephanie, I was just reorganizing my files, going back to Bonnie's file system. So many things that I go back to, but we're always giving our kids these just solid, wholesome forms of advice and encouragement. And the thing I say to my girls the most is we can do hard things. And they're upset about something being hard. I'm like, that's okay. We can do hard things. And that's kind of the same advice I give myself looking back, is the fear of something being hard and feeling the anxiety of whether I can get through it. And just saying like, hey girl, we can do hard things. And remembering that bite by bite, it's one step at a time when you feel those big feelings of overwhelm, because there is so much to it. It's such a comprehensive course that goes beyond career and design. It's so much mindset and personal growth. So you get a lot of that warm hug cushioning on the inside when you get some of those big feelings of, I don't know if I can do this, or I don't know if I can keep going, but I would just keep saying like, we can do hard things. It's okay. And you can always close the computer. Take one step at a time. Definitely worth it though. Changed my life for sure.
I am guessing that I have some alumni on this call as well, just based on what I know about our community and how much they are probably here to support you as well. So if you are alum on this call, I would like to invite you to answer the same question that I just asked everybody. What is one piece of advice that you would give someone who is here kind of feeling all the same feelings you felt when you were discovering this and considering it and trying to decide? Will you just type it in the chat for us? Then I'm going to take a few minutes and just pull some questions that have been submitted. We won't take time for everyone to answer them. So let's just, I'll read it. And if you want to answer it, why don't you just like raise your hand like this? And so we don't speak over each other, and we'll go that way. How does that sound? Okay, so Maureen says, how do you each plan for the time that you work on immersion? Do you set aside a specific time, or do you fit it in between other responsibilities? Anyone want to take that one? Yeah, Patty.
Well, I had to learn time. I was good at time management before I'd had my strokes, but I had to relearn. And one thing I did is I realized, and I think Bonnie, you may have said something like this, you make it important. So I would actually schedule on my calendar as if I were going to the doctor. And that was my time to do just immersion and nothing else. And I've kept that. And it's amazing how organized you can be. And it gives you that piece of it is my time and it is important. And then you can be focused.
This has been a revelation to me recently. When I started to try to make a new habit, I was struggling with it. And I read, or I can't remember, I read it or heard it somewhere, and they were like, oh, great, you're going to do that when? And that is what I was missing. I had not committed a specific time. So I was kind of floundering, trying to fit it in without, like, I had dedicated to it, but not decided when I was going to do it. And that was the part that was missing for me. And so I think it's really important. Commit and then decide when. When am I going to fit this in? And then, like, just like you said, an appointment with yourself that you wouldn't miss. I love that. Okay, so this next question is from Art Dealer Chic. What was your favorite part or week of immersion? Yeah, Cassandra.
My favorite part was when we got into color. It
Mhm.
was the middle module. So we had learned the basics of Illustrator, how to open it, how to get started, how to draw shapes. And I was doing all those things and sketching and bringing them in. And the excitement didn't really sink in until Bonnie showed us the live paint bucket tool and a couple of those lessons that just blew my mind and showed us how simple it was to do one thing 4 different ways. And my excitement just skyrocketed. I think I texted several people like, we just got into this module in immersion and it is so fun, and it just fueled something really special for me. And seeing things in your own vision outside of the sketches is really powerful.
I love that. Okay, this is an interesting question from Claire. Claire says, I wonder if any of you struggled with feeling creative at the start. I'm in an odd position of being confident around my traditional art skills, but I am not sure that I feel very imaginative. I'm struggling to feel confident about being creative. Yeah, Casey.
I can relate to this, especially because I think maybe as all creatives will hit slumps of creativity and then peaks of creativity. Maybe that's just me, but um, recently went through a little bit of a slump just in January. And I think it came down to really trusting myself, because I would kind of draw or doodle, and then I would quickly have that feeling of like, well, I don't like this, or this is bad. And I think once I just started to really ignore that, like, okay, well, here's a sketch I just did absentmindedly because I started keeping my sketchbook in my kitchen or on the counter. And then if one child is content, I can quick kind of go sketch a little bit. And then the next morning, I'll take this sketch that I just made on a whim. And instead of feeling judgmental about it from the get-go, like, well, let me see what I can do with that the next day. And then I'll play with it a little bit the next day. And it kind of just becomes something. And it really turns into more the less you judge yourself. And then it's like the spark just ignites. And you're like, okay, now I'm like, I got a bunch of ideas now, and I'll just fill a whole page of a sketchbook one day and see what I come up with it the next day. And so I've been there because I've hit that slump, but it's been the judgment part for me that's like, I got to stop doing that because it doesn't serve me.
That's really impactful. And I do think there's this thing where we feel like maybe our creativity is low or we're going to run out or maybe it's not there. And actually, the more you use it, the more it fuels, the more the bucket fills. And so for me, the more I come to it, the more creative I am and the more excited I am to come back to it the next day. But the longer I step away from it, the further away it does feel. It feels distant. Okay, Chris says, what do you think is different in the offering of this course compared to, let's say, a degree in design? What real life gaps did it fill? So I'm not sure if anyone here has an art degree. Do, do you,
Mm.
Stephanie? Okay, so maybe you could speak to this, and Casey too. Not necessarily like which one is better. I don't want to go down that road, but like what real life gaps did it fill? If someone was considering one or the other.
I wouldn't say it's really comparable. I have a double major in art and graphic design, and I use that professionally, but this was a fast track to get me to a specific place I wanted to be, even after my degree. If you don't have an art degree, this is a great place to jump in and learn something so lightning fast. It's 8 weeks. I mean, you can have, like I said before, you can have a collection at the end of it. You can't get this education. You just can't get it anywhere else, I don't think. And with you as a teacher, Bonnie, you're so calm and patient and just welcoming and warm, and everyone just feels like they can get through it because of the way that you teach.
I did not know that you held a double major. That's been incredible, Stephanie. Casey, what about you?
I have an undergrad and a master's in art education, but I think when you go back to school for any program to complete the program, you have to take a lot of courses that you might not have chosen or that are irrelevant to what you're really trying to do because you have to fulfill the need of that degree. So if you are interested in pursuing surface pattern design specifically, then this is the only answer. It's like Steph said, it is the fast track. It's the hypotenuse to what you're trying to get to. Like you would waste a lot of time and a lot of effort going back for a degree. It's not that it would be wasted because you would learn a lot there too, but if your goal is to learn surface pattern design, this is the fastest way to do it and the most comprehensive way to do it.
Hypotenuse. That is a word that I should probably use when I talk about this course. I love that. We're going to take two more questions and then we'll wrap for the day. Pilar says, were all of you already good at drawing, at sketching, and being artistic already? I'm wondering how long it takes to get to your level if you don't really have any artistic abilities, but simply love art and being creative. Cassandra, you want to take that one?
Yeah. I really struggled drawing. It was probably one of my biggest doubts going into the course was that the things I wanted to draw, I didn't know how and was essentially scared to put pencil to paper. And I just remember Bonnie saying, like, you can draw blobs, you can just throw marks on paper and you can turn things into something. And the process of using Illustrator, originally I was combining all these little parts from outside of the computer, bringing them in and building my designs. And I still really love doing that. But I'd have to say is like now I have so much more confidence in myself that I am drawing with pen and paper or pencil. And that was something I picked up along the way, but mostly just the confidence to be comfortable with like potentially drawing something bad or drawing something that you can bring in and manipulate to look the way that you want to do it. But I was so scared of I buy sketchbooks and they sit there because I'm scared I'll ruin them, you know. But it gives you confidence and you just got to practice it. So no drawing skills from me when I started. At least that's how I felt.
I also had no drawing skills. It's funny to answer this question right after we answer the one about being confident in fine art, but not feeling creative. I was the exact opposite. I felt creative, but was certainly not confident when it came to pen and paper or paint and paper. And I let the fear settle in and just picked up my pencil anyways. And I made a lot of really horrible drawings to finally get to a place where they were usable. And I still make a lot of really terrible drawings, and I still wait until I get them to a usable place because the process is one to fall in love with. The process is confident building, it's fun, it's creative, it's something that you can do anywhere. It's amazing. Okay, this last question is for really anyone who has something that constrains their time. So this one is from Elizabeth. Elizabeth says, I'm due to have a baby in the next 4 to 5 weeks. I know that I'm going to be very preoccupied with being a new mom. Do you think this is something that I can take on at this crazy time in my life? So I'll see who wants to answer that one. But also I want to open this up to anyone here. Maybe this is not your exact circumstance, but maybe you have something else. Maybe you have a full-time job. Maybe you are the full-time caretaker for aging parents. Like maybe you are a homeschool mom to toddlers. Whatever it is, it's very rare that we all don't have something that constrains our time. So who would want to talk to Elizabeth? Melissa.
So as you're naming off all these different time constraint situations, I've honestly been through them. I took immersion when my kids were still really little. And then when I felt like I was starting to get some traction, my dad got really sick. So I almost had to put everything on hold for an entire year. But having immersion as a foundation and my art as a foundation, I made 2 collections in the hospital, taking care of him and my family that year. And now I take care of our acreage and their acreage because he's no longer here, plus my mom and kids, and run a successful business. So I know that if it is important to you, that it is possible and it can be healthy. I do wake up at 5 a.m. though.
Oh, my friends, thank you so much. This just fills my soul to be with you and to hear your stories, and um, being even just a small part of your story is my life's biggest honor, truly. I think it is such a blessing to be able to just get to see what you do. Um, it's lost on me on why I am the one who get to just have a front row seat, and I'm so proud of each of you, and I'm so excited to see what you do. And I'm also really excited for this year's student body as well. It's a beautiful thing, and at the end of the day, our job is to make beautiful things and make the world a more beautiful place, and that is so filled with joy. So thank you for everyone who also joined us today. Immersion is here. It's this thing that we do once a year. It is so incredibly fun, and it is only open for enrollment for 1 week. So we are closing down. Tuesday, the 25th is the last day to join us because we will kick off this year's class on March 3rd. So if this is something you want to do, come join us. You can learn everything that you need to learn over on our course page. That's bonniechristine.com/immersion. And these lovely ladies I know would be more than happy to hold conversation with any of you as well if you need to. We've got their links for you. We'll also put their links in the replay. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing with us.
Thank you, Bonnie. Love
So
you.
much. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you,
Hi,
Bonnie.
ladies. Thank you.